Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and over the months we've all speculated as OMI homies, when is Pokemon? Like they have to have the Pokemon licensing, right? Well, I wanted to revisit this because I actually did a lot more digging, and I believe through my research I can show that we will most likely see Pokemon on the Veve app from Ecomi in some form, and why the holdup that we've seen on revealing this license. As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the community and feel free to subscribe. I'm a crypto, stock, and real estate investor, but never a financial advisor. All right, before we go down the rabbit hole of Pokemon research that I did, let's address exactly why everyone cares so much about Pokemon and what the impact will be for the NFT space. So this is actually an article from NFT Culture, great article, and NFT Culture is amazing. I actually hopped on an interview with them with PO about a week ago. You should check out the video just to talk about Veve and Ecomi and help clue in some of their listeners on what this incredible company is and what they're doing. But in this article, they highlight why Pokemon is perfect for NFTs and what some of the hardships may be. So Nintendo and Pokemon have been trying to figure out how to make digital collectibles cross-platform for nearly the entirety of the franchise. With the release of Pokemon Go and the latest Pokemon games on 3DS and Switch, they've turned this vision into a reality. Now collectors can trade, battle, and engage with real-world trainers based entirely on proximity. Imagine if those battles, evolutions, and trades could have real-world tangible effect. Once again, a great opportunity for the NFT space. They even go into how there's built-in NFT rarity, and they even show the Black Lotus from Magic the Gathering, which I love the nod. Now the challenges that they listed, this article came out a few months ago, and I think some of them are actually being met. So supply and demand is still an issue for blockchain. NBA Top Shot tried to move to Flow, thinking it would be a panacea and fix the challenge that it may have with Ethereum. They're still suffering massive challenges with delays and canceled pack releases. Some drops have 200K people waiting in line to try and collect a pack. Even if they do collect a pack, it can take weeks to be delivered. Ethereum 2.0 promises to fix all of this by increasing the scalability and providing some level of consistency to the insane gas prices that collectors suffer through today. A massive media engine like Pokemon can't enter the NFT market until all of this has been streamlined. The brand would suffer, and the companies like Nintendo being inherently risk adverse, unfortunately Pokemon NFTs do not appear imminent. Now this was written quite a few months ago before Immutable was really well known in the space, and Immutable does solve quite a few of these hardships, which I'll get into later in the video. And they end off by saying they may not be the first, but they will be the biggest NFT market. What makes Pokemon NFTs such a great opportunity is that the medium can coexist with collectors, flippers, and users simultaneously. If Nintendo and the Pokemon Company can figure this out, they will be the biggest NFT market in the world, and it will be hard to find another entity that could beat them. That is why we are all so bullish on Pokemon coming to Veve and being a licensor aligned with Ecomi. So the Pokemon Company overall is actually not a top 10 licensor, believe it or not, which Ecomi does have a majority of the top 10. But when we look at the list of highest grossing media franchises, number one, Pokemon at estimated $105 billion in total revenue. The franchise is absolutely killing anything they touch. So in a space like NFTs that is absolutely crushing, you think they'd be hopping in right away, right? But what did they just say? They're risk averse. They want to make sure they do this in the right way, in the right fashion, reaching the right audience. And that's where Veve comes in. But I do want to touch on why this is so probable with Ecomi and Veve. There are so many ties to partnerships with the Ecomi leadership team between David Yu, Ecomi CEO, or Al Khan, the head of global licensing, and Jeremy Padower, which we've discussed in a previous video, but I was able to confirm that Wicked Cool Toys is still the master license holder for Pokemon toys and plushies. So Wicked Cool Toys is attached to Jeremy Padower as well as Jazzware, so you can see global toy maker for Pokemon, Fortnite, Roblox, Halo. And Jeremy has openly said that he has advised and worked with Ecomi and the Veve team. So he is in league or attached to the project very much so, even tweeting out last month saying Veve had a 3-year head start on digital collectibles. Al, David, and Dan showed me in 2018. I was skeptical, which back then, man, like everyone was, right? NFTs were new and people couldn't really wrap their heads around why this was going to take off back then. Al Khan at 74 carefully curates projects. I bought OMI early. I held the dip. I feel very optimistic, no guarantees, and he tweets at the team. So Jeremy Padower, who holds the global master toy license for Pokemon, is all gung-ho on Ecomi and Veve. So that's one, right? One big name who has a lot of attachment and licensing with Pokemon who's attached to Ecomi and Veve. And then next, we all at this point are familiar with Al Khan, who is Ecomi's global head of license. He is the man, right? He brought Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! To the US with massive success and has also held licenses with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cabbage Patch Kids, Polly Pockets, WWF, and Nintendo itself. I mean, the guy has close ties to the Nintendo team, to the leaders. He's worked with them for decades and even said that David and Dan remind him of the Nintendo leaders back in the early days. Here he is directly with Mr. Kubo and Mr. Ishihara. Khan secured the licensing rights to the franchise for everywhere outside Asia. But his Rolodex is bigger than an encyclopedia. But many of the licenses that he secured, like Nintendo, like Pokemon, were for his past company, 4Kids, which has now been sunsetted, and he's now established a new company under Crane Con LLC. So he may no longer actually have the Pokemon license, which took him originally a year and a half to secure back in the 90s. However, David Yu from Ecomi and Veve still does, according to Al from this interview, right? Let's replay exactly what he says.
So after I left Coleco, I started my own company, which was called 4Kids Entertainment. And I got all the rights to Nintendo as one of my first clients in terms of licensing. And in one of my travels, I saw these kids playing a game called Pocket Monsters. And we saw that in the streets. The kids were collecting the cards and they were playing the game. Found out that Nintendo was one of the owners of that particular concept. So after a year and a half of negotiation, I got the rights worldwide to Pocket Monsters. And of course, had the opportunity of bringing it out to the rest of the world. Changed the name, of course, right away because we didn't like the name, Pokemon. And then we came up with a whole marketing plan which involved the toys, the television shows, which we produced, a myriad of other things all intertwined. But the funny bit was, so I had these card rights. So I needed card distributors, and I had gotten a letter from David saying that he was, knows a lot about the card industry, and would love to think about having Pokemon cards. I didn't know him, but the letter was impressive. I thought he really understood what the business model was. So we gave him the rights to distribute Pokemon cards in, I guess, Jay, was it Australia and New Zealand, right?
Yeah, back in the day. And I think it's about 97, 98, no, 99, around that era. Yeah.
And he did great. And of course, after we got Pokemon, we got Yu-Gi-Oh! And David got Yu-Gi-Oh! No, here.
That was a great one.
Yeah. Fast forward, I don't have Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! David still does.
We still sell them in our shops everywhere. Still going strong.
So right there, he says he no longer has the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Licensing, but David of Ecomi and Veve does. I believe he's referencing the Pokemon card game in this sense. And that David Yu has this license via Nintendo Australia, which has rights to Australia and New Zealand, and was where the game and cards went after Japan's success. But wait, how do we know David Yu has access to the Pokemon cards? Well, David Yu is wildly successful already. He is not just a new CEO to Ecomi and Veve. He has many other companies that are well established and successful. He was listed in 12th place in the 2014 Deloitte New Zealand 50 fastest growing companies for his retail management group, beginning as a wholesale and supply chain solution for manufacturing and distribution in Australia, New Zealand, China, and other Asian markets. So he has a foothold in a lot of different markets in Asia, as well as pretty much runs house in New Zealand and Australia as a business owner. With a number of affiliated companies across Asia and New Zealand, RMG also serves as a parent company for a number of Yu's established business across gaming, collectibles, and entertainment, including Games R Us, Hobbyco, Livewire, and Vagabond. So we know about his store, Games R Us, which is one of the top stores in New Zealand for collectibles. But we have Hobbyco, Black Currant, Skincare, RMG Fabrics. But the one I want to highlight is Vagabond Games Limited. Now, this is a subsidiary underneath RMG, right? So this is all David. And we can see when it comes to the brands that Vagabond has, Magic the Gathering also has Bear Bricks, which we've seen a ton of Bear Bricks in the background of him and Dan. We see Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. And then we see the Pokemon trading card game with the new Sword Shield Evolving Skies being advertised here. And again, this is David Yu. Scrolling down, we can see Stranger Things Dungeons and Dragons. We can see, again, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Warhammer, Dragon Ball Super card game, and then we see Gundam in Initial D. But what else? Let's look at all the brands at the bottom. So we can see, again, Games Workshop, Funko, Bandai, Wizards of the Coast, Konami, Kid Robot, which is Frank Kozik, Hasbro, Cryptozoic, which is the Kripkins that we've seen, Disney, and Cause, which we've all been hinting very heavily towards, DC, which we've obviously seen a lot in the Veve app, Final Fantasy. And so we saw just a bunch of brands that are already on Veve, right? Because they're associated with David, right? And a bunch of those other ones have been hinted at. But we can see that David has licensing in partnerships and relationships with those brands through Vagabond. And looking at the Medium article again, we can see the stronger the IP of the brand, the more valuable the surrounding products can be straight from David Yu's mouth. And what are some licenses that he's associated with through these other companies? Dungeons and Dragons, Family Guy, Firefly, Middle Earth, Mario Bros, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Nintendo, Pac-Man, Pokemon, The Hobbit, Star Wars, The Simpsons, Bandai, Zelda, Warhammer. Now you could say, oh, but we're already all familiar with this, right? We've seen this, we've heard it, but we haven't seen the licensing, or it doesn't mean that Veve has this licensing. Well, in this article that came out back in 2018, this is October 17th, 2018, licensing the next step for digital collectibles. This was a document used for Ecomi and Veve to actually show and educate people back then how licensing and IP works, and basically to get them on board early as investors. And they go in and say, licensing a product, design, or some form of content grants the license holder permission to use or reproduce content which was created by another person or entity. So Vagabond has the license with all of these companies. How I'm reading this is grants the license holder permission to use or reproduce content which was created by another person or entity, right? So if they have access to Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and all of these other licenses, then Veve technically could host a Vagabond licensor and would grant access to this IP. Now you could say, okay, but does that mean that we would be able to bring them on Immutable X? That part I don't think so, because it goes on to say it does not give the license holder ownership over the property itself. So yes, these are NFTs, but in a centralized gated format, right? Because there's a smart contract, but it's all within that format. So do we have true ownership? I would argue not. And that's the piece where I think they're working with these licensors to make sure that they can launch something and it says this came straight from Pokemon or straight from Nintendo or straight from Wizards of the Coast, to make sure that you can have those on Immutable in some other format in a true decentralized way. But they've built up partnerships and licenses with these licensors for multiple different countries between Jeremy Padower, Al Khan, and David Yu, again, with multiple businesses. They've built trustworthy relationships where they've shown we can continue to make you money if you trust us with your brand. But again, when this came out in 2018, I imagine there were some initial reservations, because back then Veve was a concept until really earlier this year. Now, 4 months out of beta, they have well over 300,000, probably closer to 400,000 users now, and have been selling out drop after drop after drop. And to repeat, in a past AMA, they've said there hasn't been a license that they've wanted that they haven't been able to get. So all of these licenses that David has secured for decades of work with his other companies, he's wanted them. So then they've secured them. But then Why don't they do it now, right? Like send the project sky high and crush every other project out there in the NFT space with Pokemon, whether it be cards or the actual physical Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or all of it. My theory is they have the licensing for Pokemon cards and most likely also for Pokemon for the NFT collectibles, but they wouldn't be able to technically be able to mint them via like an OpenSea yet. Here's why. Immutable X. We all know that Ecomi is on GoChain, right? And they're making that move. Everyone was so confused why Ecomi chose to migrate from GoChain to Immutable instead of like a Matic or Engine or Cardano or some other blockchain. But the reason is ERC 1155. Immutable X is a layer 2 that allows them to mint their NFT collectibles via the number 2 crypto in the world, and that is Ethereum. It's the most used in the NFT space and supports ERC 721 and ERC 1155. What is ERC 1155? This article probably gives the best explanation and visual of what ERC 1155 looks like. So the ERC 720 standard is great for tokenizing and creating unique assets that can be transferred from one wallet to another. However, a collection of ERC 721 tokens can prove slow and inefficient. For instance, when transferring multiple armor pieces in a game for a particular character, this is where ERC 1155 comes in and can offer unique digital NFTs that allow batch transfers of multiple tokens at once and at a much faster speed than ERC 721. ERC 1155 tokens are often described as the next gen multiple token standard, and the focus is here truly a multi-token approach. ERC 1155 is developed by Engine, which this is why I always say Engine is the most important crypto for the NFT space because of the infrastructure that it's been building out, and supports both NFTs as well as fungible tokens. Now, it shows this is ERC 721, right? One vending machine for each item versus ERC 1155, one vending machine for infinite items. So when you're eventually able to sell your Veve collectibles outside on OpenSea, do you want to be able to send one and pay a gas each time out of it? Or do you want to batch send all of it for a much cheaper transacted amount and be able to send all of them and also put them together in group sales? This is why the whales are collecting all of one number and doing things of that caliber. But also, when Pokemon comes, the demand will be so vast that whatever project Veve will have to be able to handle the user base and be able to batch send multiple NFTs with interoperability for 898 Pokemon variation types, depending on which ones from which region, whether it's Kanto or Johto or whatever, come to Veve. And from the beginning article from NFT Culture, what we see, that was one of the challenges they outlined for Pokemon, was that the demand is too great and basically everything's too slow. But Immutable X solves this. And what's another commonality is the augmented reality factor, right? How easy is it to tie in joint marketing with Veve to Pokemon, a premium designed collectible app that can be displayed in augmented reality, similar to Pokemon Go, right? There's no other contenders because Ecomi and Veve have been building to have this kind of partnership and make sure that it is low risk for Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. Even if we don't get Pokemon, if we just get the Pokemon cards are crushing again. The Pokemon Company total sales hit 34 billion cards this past year. So that would be massive to Ecomi and Veve. And of course, looking at Logan Paul, there are some really big celebrities who would become immediate ambassadors of all Veve and Ecomi if they had Pokemon card NFTs, or what about a Pokemon playing game? We know that mini games are coming, but how simple would it be for them to build a NFT Pokemon card game in the app, especially since, again, Immutable X. Gods Unchained is a playable NFT card game that had massive success and was kind of the guinea pig for Immutable X. So to sum this all up, because I know this has been a lot, I believe we'll see Pokemon cards come to Veve first, and most likely some point after the Immutable X migration, which is set to take place next month, and possibly after localization because it makes sense for that market as well. I then believe we'll probably see actual Pokemon, like rendered quality Pokemon that are movable or trainable or evolvable in 2022. And I know some people probably don't want to hear that. And why that late? Because that will probably put the Veve user base to somewhere well around 3 million plus. Probably even more if you're able to play Pokemon cards in Veve before then. So they're scaling the app as it grows, but right now they said it can handle a couple million. So if actual real Pokemon come to Veve, it's game over and the user base would skyrocket. And that's just Pokemon. What about Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Magic cards or any of the other 100 licensors that we haven't seen yet? For those of you who are getting tired of seeing OMI just beaten so down and for deadlines being pushed from Ecomi and Veve, great projects take time because they build smart. I've made this comparison before, I'm going to do it again, but look at Cardano. Many have criticized Cardano and ADA because all of their competitors have been working so fast and building out these massive ecosystems and doing all these things, but Cardano is the tortoise in the tail of the tortoise and the hare. I mentioned in a past video that Cardano is going to moon once Goguen, its smart contracts, are here, which was slated in summer and has been pushed down. Sound familiar? But many sold their Cardano for flashy new projects that were mooning, and they lost money because they sold at a low and bought this new flashy project that was taking off at a high. And then that shiny crypto that was doing so well that they bought at a high tanked. And that's because it had no foundation to last. You need to have strength in your strong plays that have catalysts that are upcoming that you know are going to moon when they do. I invested in Ecomi 6 months ago. So back in February, but I invested in Cardano in August of 2020 at 13 cents. Today, ADA hit a new all-time high of above $2.80. And that's all because the catalyst of Goguen, the smart contracts, has finally been announced for September 12th, 3 weeks away. So in 1 year, that's I'm up well over 2,000%. And in that year, there's been tons of delays and criticism, but when you invest in smart projects, it's just a matter of time and perseverance. Now, Ecomi and Veve's major catalysts, immutable, cashing out gems, multiple exchanges, and plenty more of licensors to see are only a few weeks to a month away. Does this sound like a familiar story? Warren Buffett famously said, "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient." The same can be said for crypto, so don't make the same mistake with OMI like those who sold their Cardano due to a lack of patience and being distracted by other projects. It's right around the corner. All you have to do is just shut out the noise and remember why you invested in Ecomi and Veve. As always, I hope you found my content valuable, and if so, please hit the like button and leave a comment down below. The likes and comments appease the algo overlords and help my channel to continue to grow. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell for future content. That's it for today. I'm Taps. Thank you for your time, man. Happy trading.